Right now, the National Weather Desk, flash flooding. A 12-year-old is swept away by rushing water while hundreds of students and teachers are rescued from their flooded school.
It's been significant flooding to the degree of I've not seen that in several decades.
While heavy rain triggered mudslides in a community ravaged by Hurricane Helene.
And there's so many slopes that are still unstable.
A dangerous heat wave arrives in Texas where temperatures are soaring into the triple digits.
This is the type of heat we generally don't start seeing until July.
Speaking of summer, we'll look ahead at what we can expect to see this year.
Much of the U.S. has a chance, at least a slight chance, of above average temperatures.
And mosquito season is here, what you can do to reduce their numbers around your home.
A thimble full of water and the mosquitoes can lay eggs in that.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. More rain is expected to fall across the mid-Atlantic today, one day after torrential storms caused flash flooding. In rural western Maryland, several inches of rain fell in a very short period of time, sending water from a tributary of the Potomac River into streets and also buildings. You can see the water covered many cars up to the front hood. A local elementary school also flooded. Students say water was close to the ceiling. Firefighters using boats rescued 200 students and teachers from that school. No one there was injured, but sadly in Virginia, firefighters searched for a 12-year-old boy reportedly swept away by flood waters. The search resumed this morning. There's also flooding in southern Pennsylvania. Water filled the streets of Myerdale, with water filling some homes up to the first floor. There's now a state of emergency here, with people living in low-lying areas ordered to evacuate. This is an area prone to flooding, but the county EMA director says this much is unusual.
I've seen a lot of flooding. I will say that some of the folks I've talked to have said it's been significant flooding to the degree of I've not seen that in several decades.
In western North Carolina, heavy rain triggered up to 15 new landslides in a small community hit hard by Hurricane Helene. Kimberly King has the details.
And that was 6 feet he dug out of this hole, and it's completely filled up.
Craig Albert's talking about a local excavator working all over Batcave.
And that's all from sediment coming off Highway 9 there.
3 inches last night sounded more like 10 plus inches.
Craig and his wife Michelle are at Michelle's mom's property, where another round of mud flowed down a Helene slide.
Imagine all these other people in the area that have landslides on their property and the erosions.
Jake Jarvis owns a local grading company working 2 crews on 7 sites with track hose. Jarvis reports up to 15 new landslides or areas where mud flowed off Helene slides. This is fresh mud from one of them. This is what he sees with homeowners.
Heartbroken. They're stressed.
He shows us photos of a concrete deck that pulled away from a home's foundation.
Everything is loose from Helene still. And and it piled up and it's like a big sponge sitting there. And every time we have 2 days of rain, that sponge gets heavier and heavier and something's got to give. And there's so many slopes that are still unstable.
We also saw work along Highway 9, where DOT has been a constant presence along the Rocky Broad River. Are you seeing people leave this area for good?
I'm seeing them leave, at least for temporary, and certainly thinking about it. And it's just not a good, it's tough. It's tough on us. It's tough on everybody.
In eastern North Carolina, cleanup is underway after 2 tornadoes touched down Monday night. The twisters damaged 6 homes, knocking down trees and power lines about an hour east of Raleigh. No one was hurt. And in Florida, a tornado tore through a community near West Palm Beach. El Pefli is in Loxahatchee with more.
No warning. It was just rain, and then all of a sudden it just picked up and it came through and knocked the fans off the barn.
Michelle Macy and her mother spent part of Tuesday morning picking up branches that were knocked to the ground by what the National Weather Service says was an EF0 tornado that came through Loxahatchee a day prior.
It just came through like a train.
Patrick McAulwey says he and his wife and their daughter went into a laundry room in their house where there are no windows to ride out the tornado. The storm toppled at least 10 trees along a canal in his yard.
It went pretty quick from a heavy rainstorm to just all the trees were completely bent over, and then the trees started coming down.
Hours after the tornado swirled through, workers with heavy equipment and chainsaws were were busy picking up tree limbs and branches that littered parts of the area. The National Weather Service sent a meteorologist from its Miami office to survey the damage from the EF0 tornado.
There may have been a couple of instances where it could have briefly touched down. An EF0 type damage, so we're talking winds 70, 75 miles per hour perhaps at most. And hard to find a well-defined tornadic circulation on the ground, but there could have been a couple of points where it may have briefly touched down.
The threat of severe weather continues today in the northern plains, with the greatest threat stretching from Nebraska through the Dakotas. There's a slightly lower threat on the East Coast from Maryland to South Carolina. Tomorrow, the Storm Prediction Center is issuing a 3 out of 5 risk for an area that includes Chicago and Milwaukee, with a 2 out of 5 for cities like Detroit, Indianapolis, and Minneapolis. There's no severe weather in Texas, just brutal summer-like heat, and that has the National Weather Service issuing excessive heat warnings today and also into the weekend. We're talking about triple-digit temperatures in San Antonio, Austin, and Dallas. Our team coverage begins in the state capitol, where Betty Cross tells us how everyone is preparing for today's sweltering conditions.
He loves the splash pad. Alexis Bonner doesn't like almost 2-year-old crews to get drenched with sweat. An easy way to avoid that is to get a different kind of soaking at the Liz Carpenter Fountain in downtown Austin.
It's so hard to find things to do when it's so hot, so this is a good spot.
Austin and Travis County leaders gathered to warn residents about the dangers of this week's extreme heat. In past years, heat safety tips wouldn't be needed until later in the summer.
This is the type of heat we generally don't start seeing until July. And it's a stark reminder that we need to be prepared for what the summer's going to bring.
Everyone is vulnerable to heat-related illnesses, especially with the early arrival of triple-digit temperatures. EMS says the most common problem is heat exhaustion.
Weakness, dizziness, heavy sweating, nausea, vomiting, and that fast, weak pulse that you'll feel sometimes when you're working in the heat. If someone is experiencing heat exhaustion, they should move into the shade or air conditioning and rehydrate with water immediately.
Alexis says she's prepared.
I do sunscreen. I have a little hat for him.
She might just opt for air-conditioned fun.
That sound has become more frequent for Two Brothers AC owners, Justin and Levi Moorhead. As the heat goes up, so does their air conditioning services.
Now we're seeing triple digits pretty much all week. So there's been a huge influx in service calls for us. We're just running around trying to keep up. When it starts getting hot, that's our time to shine. And we gotta go and save the day, get the house cooling again.
From new AC units to repairs,
it's about perfect.
The Moorhead brothers keep San Antonio and the surrounding area feeling cool despite the heat.
Working out in the heat, it has its challenges at times, but we stay hydrated.
We spoke to Tanya Brown with the Texas Department of Transportation on how their workers are beating the hot temperatures.
Our crew chiefs are making sure that they have a safety briefing before crewmen leave the facility in the morning to report to their duty stations. Our crew chiefs are reminding their personnel to make sure that they hydrate and drink plenty of water. Cut the guys a break and give them some grace. It's hot out there.
Crews in northeastern Minnesota are battling several wildfires. The Camp House fire broke out Saturday afternoon about 40 miles north of Duluth. It burned more than 1,200 acres. Here you can see firefighters dropping water on the Jenkins fire. It's burning about 30 miles away. It was detected Monday afternoon and has burned about 6,000 acres. Residents have been forced to evacuate, and multiple homes and businesses have been destroyed by both fires. And a wind-driven fire is burning in Arizona. The Greer fire started Tuesday and quickly grew to over 3,000 acres, prompting evacuations of nearby residents. Air tankers and other aircraft were launched to help fight the fire, but were grounded shortly after due to high winds. Several buildings in the area have been destroyed. As of last night, the fire was still 0% contained. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, the official start of summer is just over a month away. We'll show you what areas are predicted to see above average temperatures, plus tips on keeping your yard bug and mosquito free all season long.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
The official start of summer is just over a month away. With that in mind, we turn to meteorologist Brian Schroeder, who breaks down the Climate Prediction Center's latest seasonal temperature outlook.
Hey everybody, before I get to your summer outlook, we're going to go over a couple of definitions. Weather, that's the short-term atmospheric conditions looking out a few days. Think of a summer thunderstorm or sunshine during the summertime. Climate is the prevailing weather. Think of a desert. You expect hot and dry conditions. Winter in northeastern Pennsylvania, expect cold and snow. Climate is what we expect. Weather is what you get. As far as features we're watching, El Nino, warm Pacific waters, La Nina, that's cool Pacific waters, and these features are important because they steer the jet stream and that in turn controls our weather. Neutral, that means a transition between these two events. And getting to your outlook, first of all, much of the U.S. has a chance, at least a slight chance, of above average temperatures for the summer. For precipitation, dry conditions across the middle part of the country, extending westward through the Rockies toward the Pacific Northwest. However, along the Atlantic coast, not a great chance. However, there is a low-end chance of above average precipitation.
We are just about halfway through May, and already areas of the South have seen large amounts of rain. In Alabama, the rain has helped some areas that were seeing drought conditions. Meteorologist Evan Chikvera looks at just how much rain has fallen so far across the state this month.
Well, many rivers, waterways in Alabama look like this, running high after the weekend's rain. You probably had it at your house too. We had radar estimates as high as 6 inches in a few spots in central Alabama. A lot of our sky watchers reporting in excess of 4 inches at actual weather stations. So what did this do for our totals for the month? Let's start in our westernmost counties. These are actual stations for the total thus far in May. 4.75 up in Hamilton. Look at Tuscaloosa, 9.46. That's going to lead the pack here in central Alabama. Another 8.85 down in Boligy at the Lock and Dam there. We look at central Alabama now. Aniana, 6.1 inches. Odenville, 5.56. Clanton, 6.4. And hey, Birmingham, 5 inches. Hoover, 5.9 inches. And Lake Purdy, that's important, 6.53 there. And remember, it wasn't that long ago we were talking about how low Lake Purdy was. Not the case anymore in our easternmost counties. Weaver at 5.52. Childersburg, 5.14. Up in Rainbow City near Gadsden, 5.5 inches of rain since the 1st of May. So we're looking pretty good, and as far as our rain totals across the state, where we should be, there's only 2 locations with a slight deficit, and that would be Montgomery as well as Birmingham. They're marginal, so this is a drought-breaking type of rain, but I think we can hit the brakes. We only have 1 more day of rainfall, fortunately, before we turn much warmer and much drier late in the week.
Rain can cause flooding that poses dangers to us and our homes, but one of the most dangerous places you can be during a flood is in your car. Sam Durante has more.
It happens very fast. Like, water is a very significant force that is pretty much uncontrollable.
Today, I spoke with Deputy Chief Dan Halowich of the Scranton Fire Department, who explained to me the risks of driving into still pools of water on the roadway.
It only takes about 6 inches of water to stall a vehicle or to start moving a vehicle. When you get to 2 feet of water, it's going to sweep a vehicle away completely.
The safest thing a motorist can do is avoid still water and plan a route around flooded paths while being alert of changing conditions.
Even though the vehicles may be geared for more extreme conditions, they certainly can't match the force of moving water.
If a vehicle is being swept away into that force, Deputy Chief Halowich says every second matters.
Unbuckle your seatbelt. Roll down your window. You won't be able to forcefully open the door, so roll down the window. If the window won't go down, try and find something to break the window and swim out through the window, swim away from the vehicle to a safe area.
But the danger isn't over once the driver leaves the vehicle.
A lot of times manhole covers will lift and it'll create a vacuum in the area, as well as down power lines. Be mindful of those.
Another risk a vehicle may face is hydroplaning. Deputy Chief Halowich suggests remaining calm and avoiding making sudden movements until the situation passes.
Rain and warm temperatures are perfect for mosquitoes. If you haven't seen them yet, chances are you will in the coming weeks. Christina Santiago shows us things you can do to help reduce mosquito numbers in your area.
Mosquitoes breed in standing water. Any puddle, pot, or toy left out can become a breeding ground and causing concerns of possibly catching the West Nile virus. Richard says that's why you should pay extra attention to your yard, especially after recent rain.
With all this recent rain activity we had, there's going to be a lot of spots in everyone's yards where water's going to collect. It might not be as noticeable, like in your flower pots. Rain gutters can hold water and there'll be mosquitoes breeding in there. Children's toys that are out in the backyard. It just has to collect a thimble full of water and the mosquitoes can lay eggs in that.
Richard stressing the importance of early action to avoid the spread of the virus.
Younger children, immunocompromised individuals may feel the effects of West Nile a lot faster than a healthy adult. So you want to be aware of mosquito activity. If you're starting to feel like you're getting flu-like symptoms, you want to go get checked out by your doctor.
In Maine, it's not just mosquitoes making an appearance. The invasive brown-tailed moth is also starting to emerge. But officials say this year the moth's arrival is off to a slow start. Meteorologist Ryan Munn shows us why that's good news for local tree populations.
This year we saw emergence on the 24th of April, which is about a week and a half later than they emerged last year. And that's because we kind of had this stretch of cold and wet weather.
These caterpillars have been prevalent in the state since 2015. And with the exception of parts of coastal Cape Cod, they're not found anywhere else in the United States.
It's an invasive species, so it's not native to the state of Maine. And their population a few years ago really started to take off. Right now we're seeing a bit of a population decline, so there's not as many brown-tailed moth species.
But they can still cause a significant amount of tree damage.
So brown-tailed moth caterpillars are voracious eaters. When they are present on a tree in really large numbers, they have the capability to completely defoliate the tree. Stressful for the tree, as you can imagine, that the trees need their leaves so that they can photosynthesize and make energy and store energy.
Experts say some of the leaves will come back, but the trees never fully recover. Then there's a rash that may develop if you come across one of these insects.
So these hairs are barbed. So when they land on your skin, it's almost like you're going like micro stabbed. It's very, very small bits of needles that get into your skin. So you're being stabbed by the hair, and then inside of the hair is also this toxin that causes chemical irritations.
And time now for a short break as we soar over Alaska's Tungas National Forest.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
This week marks 19 years since the New England flood of 2006, also known as the Mother's Day flood. Meteorologist Christian Bridges looks back at this historic storm.
If you were living in Maine, New Hampshire, or Massachusetts back in 2006, you probably remember the Mother's Day flood with scenes like this. Collapsed bridges, washed out roads, all across the region with one of the worst flood events that we've recorded. Rainfall totals in the region were extreme with this event, with over 10 inches in a large portion of northern Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and far southern Maine. Some parts of Maine saw nearly 20 inches of rain in 8 days during this flood event, with most of it falling on Mother's Day on the 14th. This was all caused by a low pressure system that had a connection directly to the tropics. So it was pumping tropical moisture into the region for nearly 10 straight days. And that's why we saw such extreme flooding, with many rivers approaching 500-year levels, which means that in any given year, there's only a 0.2 chance of a flood that extreme occurring.